Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. It's a wonderful 6 years of journey together. So today, instead of reading a book, we are going to listen to two brilliant authors and achievers. They'll be talking about the life and beyond, and so that's why we call it as Beyond the Boundaries. But before that, we have two birthday friends, Vinita and Kenny.
And Kenny.
Happy birthday, Vinita.
Happy
Thank
birthday,
you.
Vinita.
Happy birthday,
Thank
Vinita.
you. Thank you so much.
Jenny.
Happy birthday. Happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Vinita. So, Vinita, you want to have a word or two?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me in the book club. It's been a wonderful 6 years. Always looking forward to the session of the upcoming session, and really thankful to all of you to allow us to be on your book club. Thank you.
Happy birthday, Vinita.
You are welcome.
Kenny is there,
have
or
you.
I think is not yet joined, right?
Kenny
I don't
hasn't
think so.
joined. Yeah.
Okay, we'll wish him on book club behalf.
Yes.
Yeah.
Vinita birthday. Kenny birthday.
Yeah, Milind, over to you.
That was beautiful.
Lovely,
Thank you, Yanks.
lovely.
Great beginning. So, welcome to all of you to this 6th anniversary session of our IIMC book club. Let's just breeze through this quick history of our book club, especially for our guest speakers. It should provide a breath of fresh air to wake up. Our book club started for me and my co-host Srinivas in memory of our mothers. They were exceptionally good teachers who planted the love of books in our hearts. Naturally, the book club first met on September 5. That's celebrated, as you all know, as Teachers' Day in India. Before we knew it, more than 30 book-loving, lifelong MBA friends joined us in our monthly sessions that have become fertile ground for the meeting of our minds. Guest speakers like the eminent authors who are joining us today, both Akhil and Meena, have added more churn to our discussions on several occasions during these 6 years, zooming in from countries as far apart as the US, South Africa, Spain, Japan, and of course, India. The flavor of this book club has developed with eclectic themes, intellectual dialogue, and reflection, all of it infused with technological creativity from Srinivas to make each session a unique production. Our book club website, iimcbookclub.com, archives all of our sessions over the last 6 years. Finally, the icing on the cake, as you just saw, has been birthday celebration noting birthday boys and girls, as well as the annual anniversary events like the one today that we are about to launch. With these birthdays, we feel like we are growing younger each year, adding pizzas to our lives via this book club, while living all over the planet, right from San Francisco, where Shankar comes from, to Sydney, where we have Ajay Jairao and Sangeeta. Let me now introduce all of you to the next voice you will hear, opening the curtain on today's special session that will take us beyond boundaries, both inward and outward. Pratyusha is the daughter-in-law of Yanks, as Srinivas is known to all of us, and she lives in Virginia in the US with her husband and 2 young daughters. She holds a master's degree in communications from Columbia University and has over 15 years of experience in the fintech industry, most recently at Visa. She stepped away from her corporate career to be more present for her daughters, a decision she describes as difficult, but one of the best she has made. She has been an avid student and practitioner of the Bhagavad Gita since her teenage years, drawing from its wisdom the strength and grounding to navigate life. So here she is.
Hello, everyone. When we hear the phrase going beyond, we usually imagine something that is far out of grasp. A big career milestone, a landmark award, or a more distinguished life than the one we have. But what if the extraordinary has never been separate from the ordinary? I have a distinct memory from growing up in Hyderabad. I used to visit a friend's house very often, and her mother had a way of making everyday life feel so special. Her tea and coffee coasters were hand-painted by her with little motifs and sparkles. She always used to listen to music when cutting vegetables, and she would feed us with so much love every time we visited. I cannot point to any one remarkable thing she did, but the little things that she did carried so much joy, it was infectious. And maybe that is where the extraordinary lives, in the attention we give, the care we bring, and the joy we create for others. Ambition is a fuel. It allows us to build, achieve, and move forward. But the Bhagavad Gita asks us to expand the definition of ambition. First, how we act. Yoga Karma Sukhaushalam, says Krishna in chapter 2. Bring skill, care, and presence to the work in front of you, whatever that might be. Second, where we align. Shreyan Swadharmo Vigunaha. Walk your own path. Don't measure your life by society's standards. Set your own standards. And third, why we strive. The shift from what have I achieved to how can I contribute with what I have. As we grow, our need to prove to others may reduce, but our capacity to contribute deepens. We can keep learning, remain curious, turn experience into guidance, and time into service. किसी की मुस्कुराहटों पे हो निसार, किसी का दर्द मिल सके तो ले उधार, किसी के वास्ते हो तेरे दिल में प्यार, जीना इसी का नाम है. In the end, going beyond may simply be an ordinary life that leaves an extraordinary meaning behind. Congratulations on 6 wonderful years of the book club.
Thank you, Pratyusha. After that wonderful curtain raiser on the session, we can now turn to our Master of Ceremonies and moderator for today's session, Anjali. So please take over, Anjali.
Thank you very much, Milind. And good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I hope not good night yet for everybody. Thank you all for joining us today. So most of us here are either approaching our 70s or have already crossed that. Sandeep, who was the first? Was it you?
I think it was Daddy Raina.
Okay.
Actually, Gorla.
Okay.
Gorla. Yeah.
This is a fascinating stage of life. Our careers are largely behind us. Many of our responsibilities begin to change. And a new question quietly emerges. How do we make this phase of life truly meaningful? Not just successful, not merely comfortable, but joyful, purposeful, and deeply fulfilling. To help us explore that question, we have 2 remarkable people whose books approach it from different directions. And you can see them on the slide. Akhil Gupta, he's the author of Bridges Across Humanity and Love, Learn and Play. And a very dear friend of Ishan's. They were both doing the Advanced Leadership Institute at Harvard. That's where we met. Akhil invites us to look inward. His message is that flourishing begins with understanding ourselves, rediscovering the child within us, and learning simply to be ourselves. Meena Raghunathan, author of Doing Good, Navigating the CSR Maze in India, and The Responsible Manager, Building Blocks of an ESG Perspective, reminds us that meaning is also created by engaging with the world around us through responsible leadership, sustainability, service, and leaving a positive legacy. Meena is perhaps better known to many of us as the wife of Raghu, our batchmate. Meena, has Raghu also joined today?
Hi. Yes, he has.
Yeah, very much.
Okay. So, Raghu, at first glance, these seem like two different journeys, Akhil's journey and Meena's journey. Akhil's begins within and Meena's reaches outward. But perhaps they are really two sides of the same coin. As we grow older, the question is no longer simply, what have I achieved? It becomes, how do I manage myself? How do I live each day with joy and purpose? And how do I make a difference? Akhil's answer is to go inward, to discover the child that still resides within us, to be true to ourselves and to cultivate flourishing from inside out. And Meena's answer is to engage with the world, to contribute, to serve, and to leave a legacy that outlives us. By the end of this conversation, and it is a conversation, I hope we'll discover that these are not competing ideas at all. When we transform ourselves, we naturally begin to transform the world around us. So let's begin with Akhil's journey. I have a few questions for Akhil, and I'm going to restrict them to a few so that there'll be time for other people to engage. I have to warn you that Akhil sleeps early, so we need to be quick. Akhil, where are you calling in from?
New York.
New York. So
10:30 my time. I sleep at between 9:30 and 10.
So it is a testimony to his friendship with Ishan that he is here with us today.
Absolutely.
Akhil, let me begin with you. You're an IIT Delhi graduate, as many of the people on this call are. You earned your MBA from Stanford. I forgive you from now. And you became an advanced leadership fellow at Harvard University. You worked at Unilever, the pipeline for many global business leaders. You spent 12 years with Reliance, and then you founded and led Blackstone India for a decade. Looking at that remarkable journey, one would expect you to write a book called 10 Secrets to Business Success, or How to Build Wealth and Lead Global Companies. Instead, you wrote Bridges Across Humanity, exploring religion and our shared humanity, and then Love, Learn, and Play, a book about flourishing and happiness. What prompted that shift? What motivated you to write about flourishing rather than success?
Thank you, Anjali. I think it's an excellent question. Let me give you a few things that led to me writing the book. By the way, I'm a chemical engineer and a finance guy. For me, writing a book is not easy. So the way it happened was that, I was at Blackstone, enjoying the job, very fulfilling job, because it meant that India badly needed FDIs to be able to bring the capital into India. And then in 2008, there was a terrorist attack, and I narrowly escaped because I was supposed to be dining at Tiffin, but I changed my plan. I still don't know how that happened. I usually don't do that. Inspiration or divine intervention, I have no idea what it was, but I escaped that. And that shook me so much that life is so fragile, anything can happen. And I started to think about what really matters in life. And I was thinking about this thing. I figured that, yes, by any social measure, I've been very successful. 3 iconic institutions, or at that point of 2, Stanford and IIT, and 3 iconic organizations, Reliance, closely working with Dhirubhai and Mukesh, and then Blackstone. But I felt there was something lacking. In spite of being success, there was something lacking. And I'm sure many of you are in the same boat, that in spite of what the society told us to achieve, we've achieved, and yet we felt a sense of lack. Again, a series of coincidences, I ended up at Advanced Leadership Initiative. I was a kid in a candy store at the age of 62. I took 40 courses. I used to sleep only 5-6 hours, and I attended 100 seminars. Harvard has such a great convening power. Every day there was an iconic person, whom you can meet and listen to. And then there's so many, and our program was sensitizing us to so many social issues. And I was wondering, where should I be lending my time and support to? Drew Faust, who was the new president, she came in and her signature campaign was One Harvard, that she wants to break the silos of different departments. And she said that there's so much of impact being not met because of these the silos. And it occurred to me that, given my background, that I was born in India, but came to US, then to India, then back to the US, worked for global organizations, have global perspective, and I've subjected myself to global standards, Western success metrics, as well as very, very deeply entrenched in my Eastern perspective. That why shouldn't I be the one who should be sort of breaking the silos of cultures and civilizations between countries? And I was searching for an issue for that, and one paradox came to my awareness. It's pretty obvious that U.S., in spite of being the wealthiest country in the whole world, in the history of the world, if you look at the global metrics of happiness, is very, very poor. 20% of, I can go on and on. You're all probably aware of it, so I shouldn't dwell on it. And I want to get to the bottom of that as to why is that the case. And I read all the books on happiness. I took all the courses on happiness at Harvard. And then what really finally triggered the whole thing, and I was thinking, there's so many things these books are missing because they all have a Western lens. Then I came across this quote from Sir John Templeton, who said that wisdom of the East is wider than the sky and deeper than the ocean, which is what I was feeling, that there's so much element is missing where by combining the Western science and the Eastern wisdom, humanity can benefit more. So that's what I thought my calling is. The first breaking of the silos took place when I wrote that book on commonality of all religions. So most wonderful books on religion are written in silos, highlighting the differences between different religions. My book takes one theme at a time and says, what is common across all religions with actual quotes and all that stuff. So that's what triggered Anjali to me write a book on happiness. And the most unique thing is that it has at least 5, 6, 7 most wonderful insights from our Eastern wisdom.
Thank you very much, Akhil, for sharing this. And having been with you when you were writing Bridges Across Humanity, seen it come out, then seen this Love, Learn and Play, I understand that you are not just writing, but you are also living these things. And this reminds me a little about the whole concept of Vanaprastha, that the stage of life when the focus gradually shifts from achievement to contribution, which is what you're talking about. But people think about retirement as slowing down. But what you've shown us is that it's about redirecting our energy towards what matters most. And in your book, you suggest that before we can make a difference, we need to understand ourselves. And one of the central ideas is that most of us spend our lives pursuing happiness. We tell ourselves we'll be happy when we get that promotion, buy that house, take that holiday. Yet you make an important distinction between happiness and flourishing. Could you explain the difference?
Yeah, so this is as old as Kat Upanishad talks about Shreyas and Prayas, and Greek philosophy talks about hedonia and how do you say that? Eudaimonia. So hedonia is about seeking pleasure. That's about Shreya. That's about prayers. avoiding pain. And eudaimonia is more about meaning and about self-realization. I would say that one is feeling centered and very individualistic, and other is very being centered. So happiness is basically feeling, a sense of feeling, and unfortunately, happiness is very contingent on external things. So we all feel, oh, if I have a house, if I have a job, if I have a wife, I'll be happy, and then we get that stuff, and then we are still unhappy because we're chasing for the next thing. So there's this concept of arrival fallacy that we think that when we arrive at some place, we'll be happy, but we are not happy. And flourishing is basically almost like following your dharma, doing things that are aligned with your larger, sort of a cosmic word. And what I realized was that if we have to follow the dharma, then loving, learning, playing is the path to follow that every day in our lives, essentially.
Yes, and maybe this relates back to what Pratyushta was saying right in the beginning, that it really is about not chasing happiness outside ourselves, but cultivating an inner way of being. That's what you're saying, Akhil. Thank you.
Absolutely. I think what Pratyusha said is she had the essence of my book, actually. I don't need to say. Whatever she said, summarized from a personal experience, is really what my book is trying to say. So, yeah, congratulations, Pratyusha. Wonderful. Yeah.
And I love the title of your book, actually, Akhil, Love, Learn, and Play. There's 3 very ordinary words, but they seem to carry a profound philosophy. Could you explain what they mean in simple, everyday terms and how they combine the East and West?
Yeah. So, if you look at every wisdom tradition talks about love, right? Our Gita says that love is the most powerful force in the universe, and it is the eternal fire that burns. Christ has said, love thy neighbor as thyself and all that stuff. And some wisdom traditions emphasize on knowledge, learning also. But none, at least I have not come across, if anyone you have come across, please let me know. None of the wisdom traditions talks about loving, learning, and playing. And I actually believe that just like we decoded biology by the double helix, the secret of flourishing is the triple helix, which is the loving, learning, and playing. And a very important reason why I came across, or an incident that came across, that after Harvard, I took a lot of courses in psychology, and most of the experiments were done on children or baboons. And once I left Blackstone, I had time, so I was spending time with after Harvard, I was spending time with my nephew, and his wife says, Mamu, can you look after this 9-month-old child when I cook for you? So she was obviously showing her culinary expertise to me. And I was doing my experiment on the child, that before the social norms take over, what does the child want to do? And after 3 days of observing her, I figured the child wants to love. The child wants to play first, and she's learning, every day with that play, and then finally she wants to love. So that was the epiphany that, look, maybe these are the 3 deep yearnings of our life. And I started to think about that. I said, can it be so simple? Can this wisdom be hiding in such plain sight? And I got convinced that this is what it is. So I was writing a book called The Triple Helix of Human Flourishing. But that was much more complicated, a lot of funda stuff, which I read in psychology and all. And after this epiphany, I just focused on love, learning, and playing. So what does love means? Love, we have one word in English talks about love. In Greek, we have like 7 forms of love. One of the contribution of this book, you'll enjoy it, that I have introduced the Sanskrit explanations of love. In Sanskrit, we have almost 50 forms of love which is described, and you can see how rich our Sanskrit literature is. And we don't have time to go into, but you can see how language can really impact how love manifests in society. In Western world, it's only love, which is conflated with romantic love, but that's only one form of love. Love is like a spectrum, of colors. It obviously manifests very differently at different stages in your life. And you know, and that's part of the learning. So I would say love is not just a feeling, it's a skill that we have to develop, because at different stages of life, we have to manifest and love very differently. So friendship, kindness, forgiveness, generosity, compassion, gratitude. Essentially, it's a skill of connection. How do we connect to ourselves, to our whole world? It's really a kind of an attitude. It's like being a loving person manifest very differently than having a loving relationship. So that's what I actually mean by love, that we should be a loving person. Learning is actually integral to what is meant to be alive. Know thyself is like it's inscribed in the temple of Apollo.
Akhil,
And
I'm going to interrupt here. You're loving, when you talked about you've attached love, learn, and play also to our Hindu philosophy of bhakti, gyan, and karma yoga.
yes, thank you for reminding me that. That's very important. Um, so love is bhakti yoga. Learning is Gyan Yoga. Now, play is actually Karma Yoga. And this is a very deep insight, actually. I forget the name of this guy who, he'll come to me. He said, this is the secret of life, to be completely engaged with what you are doing here and now. And instead of calling it work, call it play. I forget the name of this very, very famous philosopher. So the commonality between play and
Yoga.
yes, is that the consciousness is the same, that we focus on this karma yoga basically is play, that we focus on the process, we focus not on the outcome. Like Nishkam karma is actually play, because you are going to do what you want to do and you're not concerned about what the outcome is like. So the consciousness of play is the same as a consciousness of a karma yogi. So that's a beautiful reminder that you gave it to me. Yes, that's it.
And
May not be.
we have so many grandparents over here in this room.
Yeah.
And, I know that by listening to some of them and the engagement they have had, including Nanny, who is now suddenly waking up when she's thinking that every time she's playing with her grandkids, she's doing karma yoga. So this insight, do you think that when you were at Blackstone and you were in the flow, or when you were with Reliance, you were in the flow, is that some way, as all of us working professionals, was that in some ways when we were following our karma yoga?
So, right from the childhood, I was brought up in a very deeply religious family. In fact, the Ramlila families, my grandfather started the first Ramlila and great-grandfather and grandfather started the second Ramlila. But we were born in a my father was he was a bhakt, but also a jnani. And he said, Beta, let me summarize the religion, dharma to you. There's a cosmic order in this world, right? And this cosmic order, you call it Bhagavan, you can call it whatever science tells you. And that cosmic order is maintained if you do your duty. So I was Anjali's driven by doing my duty, whatever my duty was, right? And people say, find your purpose in life. I say, just do your duty and you'll find your purpose in life. Just do your duty and remain curious. Like that's the learning part of it. Keep learning, remain curious, keep doing your duty. You will ultimately find my meaning. So I have found my meaning after 65 years, right? Previously, I was just doing my duty in school, duty in IIT, then Hindustan Lever, then Reliance, then Blackstone. But today, what I'm doing is something so much more meaningful to me than ever before. So I would say curiosity and with a sense of duty is what leads to finding your finding your, sort of.
So, Akhil, I'm going to, I think that the way you've explained Bhakti Yoga, Gyan Yoga, and Karma Yoga in a way in which we can relate to, and how you've explained Karma Yoga is play, is something that all of us can actually think about and go back to. But there was one other concept which you had brought about, which I found very thought-provoking, which is called the means-ends inversion.
Yeah.
This is not a phrase that many people would immediately recognize. Yet once you explain it, it seems to describe much of modern life. Could you explain what this phrase means-ends inversion?
Yeah, so basically means and ends, let's say money is a means or an end, right? Most of us start with money as a means, but we get so preoccupied and under so much of social pressure, keeping up with Jonases and all that stuff, that it becomes an end. So means and ends discussion is not new, Anjali. So many philosophers, say Aristotle, Kant, even Gandhiji has said that, and Einstein even said that in fact, Einstein has a beautiful quote that perfection of means, this is perfectly applicable to our modern society. Perfection of means and confusion of ends seems to characterize us, our age. So you can see means-wise, look, the progress we have made in terms of means, look at any aspect of our life, and you have so many more means available. But nobody has talked about the means and ends inversion. And obviously not, because confusion was fine, right? But this inversion is because there's an explosion of means that we are lost in the means completely. So the inversion is taking place without our knowing it. This inversion takes place without us our knowing it, and it's not because of weakness. Look at what we are subjected to. We are subjected to the structure of society. There's a huge competition. There's an comparison. So we are constantly focused on, the things that society makes us focus on, right? So that's first thing. Second, as I mentioned, the complexity has grown so exponentially. And then we live our life in a very compulsive manner, not in a conscious manner. So the focus, if you see when I was at Harvard, people say, "Oh, I want to take this course because I'll get a good grade there." So focus on grades, not on learning, right? And then all of us have been focused on our career success. But how many of us found meaningful work? The idea should be finding meaningful work. But we look for salary, reputation, status, all that stuff. And we look for social approval all the time rather than becoming an authentic person. So that's what I mean by means and ends inversion. And the reason inversion has taken place is because explosion means. If you look at the children, for example, children love without any condition, without any agenda. They love without any condition. Yes. They learn without any agenda, and they play without any purpose, right? For them, the means are so beautifully limited that they don't get lost in the means. They just give them a cardboard and a rayon, and they imagine the whole world. But as we get into the adult life, as I mentioned, the three factors that affect us without us our knowing is the whole structure of the society, the complexity and explosion of the means, and the fact that we live life in a very compulsive fashion. There's so much of advertising that takes place to tell us why we are not enough. So I think the book, the Indian version that is being published, I've added a little more matter on that than it's in the US edition on this means and ends, because that's one of the very unique contribution of this book, actually.
Thank you. Thank you very much for explaining it, especially the phrase about how children love, learn, and play without any agenda. And I love the little call out on advertising. Ishan, watch out. Yanks was also in advertising in Lintas, but he did a better side.
I was trying to provoke him.
But Akhil, I'm going to take you to the next point. We have only a few minutes left for your conversation, which is the difference between living compulsively and living consciously. You touched on it a little, that most of us live compulsively, and you suggest in your book that we should live consciously. What does that mean?
So there's a beautiful example, a story that David Foster Wallace was giving a commencement speech. He's a very well-known thought leader. And the story went like that. There were two boy fish swimming in an ocean, and the mama fish comes the other way and asks the question, "Hey boys, how's water?" They swim a little, the boys swim a little bit. One boy asked the other one, "Hey, what's water?" So such a simple but a powerful story that represents what's happening to us in our life. I mean, we are swimming in so many false narratives, and we are unconsciously being led by them. And to me, by pursuing goals which are not aligned to our core purpose, or they're not aligned with the, as I said, alignment with the cosmic order, that's what basically is, we are doing it because we are not living very consciously. When you're living consciously, you're aware of what you're doing, why you're doing it, right? Not because of an external voice, but because something that you really, your real self wants to do that stuff. And that, to me, I have a whole chapter in my book on when you live consciously, what happens to you, right? The first thing is you start living consciously, you start to, have wonder again. I mean, just focus on your body and see what the body does. And it's a bigger wonder than any AI or any other technology that we have produced. And if we live consciously, we know how interconnected we are, right? And if you look at American society, one of the biggest false narrative here is we are not aware of interconnectedness. We feel we are very self-contained. And unfortunately, the whole world is trying to go the American way. And that's part of my motivation was to write the book, especially in India, that we have such a wonderful heritage of thoughts which are more aligned with who we really are, and those are the thoughts that are in the book. And living consciously is the most important one of that. Even somebody asked Buddha, "Hey, are you God?" He said, "No." "Are you saint?" "No." "Are you this? Are you that?" "No." "So who are you?" He said, "I'm awake," right? So that's the key message of the book, that if you live your life being awake, then you will see that loving, learning, and playing are our three deepest longings in life. And my message is that no matter what we do, no matter what our circumstances are, if we do it with a loving, learning, and playing mindset, right, we will flourish, or we'll reach God if you're spiritual. And the great part of it is that you don't need to read any scriptures. You don't need to have a guru. You will know yourself whether you're acting out of love or not. You know when are you learning something out of any situation. And we can be playful all the time. Yesterday, I got shingles in me, and I wrote to my niece, "When you get a break, give me a jingle, because I have an outbreak of shingles." So rather than just saying, "Hey, call me because I have shingles," I try to write a poetic, try to write some poetry. So that's what living consciously means, Anjali. Have I answered your...
Thank you. And for those interested, Akhil's book on the principles of living consciously is fascinating. He's given us a number of different ways. I would encourage you to read that. I've read his book, marked it, and things like that. But before I continue the conversation, are there any questions for Akhil? We have a few minutes before we need to close and move on to Meena. So
Anjali can answer those questions better than me.
No, Akhil, that's not fair. You're putting me on the mat. So if there's anybody who has any questions.
So I have only one question to Akhil. Akhil, by the way, Anjali, Akhil is 1 year senior to me in IIT Delhi. I'm also from IIT Delhi. I'm electrical. And Akhil, I think, is the batchmate of Anita Mattu. Is that right?
Yes, very much so.
and also Harmanjeet Singh Saini, if you remember him.
Yes, yes, I do. I do.
And which hostel were you in?
Nilgiri.
Nilgiri. Okay, good. So Harman was also in Nilgiri.
He was in my hostel.
Yay, yes, Nilgiri.
Yeah. So Trivi also was in Nilgiri. Okay, now, so, okay, my point is that, look, I have been involved with the Swami Chinmayananda's discourses in Bombay, in Cooperage. He used to speak. And so, you know, this constant struggle for a professional between Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, and Bhakti Yoga. I somehow feel तीनों नहीं हो सकते. You have to choose only one path.
That's my dad used to say. But I'm very convinced that we need this triple helix. You cannot have even one. If the one strand of helix is not working, it doesn't lead to fulfillment. It doesn't lead to flourishing. And in fact, if I was saying, if my dad was alive, so he told me, "Beta, मैं तो भक्ति योग में हूँ, right? तुम जो है कर्म योग, and I do a little bit of ज्ञान योग, but मेरा predominantly भक्ति योग है. तुम्हारा कर्म योग है, थोड़ा बहुत ज्ञान योग भी करना. तुम भक्ति योग नहीं करोगे." If I was alive, I would convince him that loving, learning, and playing, that all three have to be done together. आप सोचो क्यों नहीं? Why can't you do every day? You should. In fact, I will give the assignment to the group here. Ask yourself every day: how did I love? How did I learn? How did I play? And could I have loved? Could I have played? Could I have lived my life differently today so I could have played? Up, पूछ के देखिए, Sandeep. You will get the answer yourself. As I say, you don't need a guru. Answer will come from within you. That's the power of this framework, that the answer will come within you.
Any other questions? Chacha, thank you very much for bringing that connection to all the IIT guys over here. My son-in-law is also from IIT Delhi, so
and also a chemical engineer.
Yes.
Yeah. But yesterday at dinner, I found out that.
Any other questions?
Equity. Right.
It's a small world, and as you say, very interconnected, Akhil. We are all interconnected. Trivi, any question for you? Any questions from you?
No. I was just saying, this big funda, triple helix.
Yeah.
Love, learn, and play.
I really believe in it.
It's like Ohm's law, Chacha.
Yeah. Seriously, this was, so many philosophers said that the real truth lies in simplicity. It is actually the quote I should give you. There's so many problems do not get solved because solution is so simple that we ignore it. So seriously, the flourishing funda of life is so simple, and because it's so simple, we ignore it.
And any grandparent who wants to talk about, Trivi's given a question. Any grandparent who wants to talk about playing? Because I think the central philosophy of Karma Yoga and the philosophy of playing is, resonates a lot. But if anybody, Tanku, you look like you are wanting to say something.
I think Vinita is the real master of how to handle as a grandparent, the amount of work she does. And Anjali, of course, you, because you have two of them now.
No, but Tanku, I think, wants to say something, Chachu.
No, I was just thinking when Akhil was talking about children. So I have these, my nephew's sons, little kids, 3-4 years old, etc. And what I've noticed is that they whatever they are doing, they're there now. They're just immersed in the present. So I think one of the qualities that also, I don't know how you stitch it up with Akhil's framework, but it's the power of being here now. And I think all our Vedas and all talk about being in the present, and books have been written, etc. So that was one thought. And the other thought for Akhil was that I'm just wanting to know that whether he's built at some point in his book the grand purpose, because what we are told is that true happiness will come, of course, with following all the the three helix that he's talked about, but also with realizing the grand purpose, and which is being one with God. So if you follow that, then I believe that will truly make you a very happy, satisfied person.
See, to me, that's why I said that even if you don't believe in God, if you do everything with a loving, learning, and playful mindset, right, you get that union with God. In fact, it's very interesting. My mom once went to my dad and said, "I'm very worried about Akhil." क्या हो गया भाई? ये पूजा में बैठता है. He doesn't sit in pujas anymore. So father ने कहा, अच्छा, I'm having dinner with him tomorrow. Tell me if he's doing anything which he shouldn't be doing. No. Or is he not doing something he should be doing? No. He helps everybody and he doesn't tell me, but they come and tell me. So my mom, if you help others, you're a good person. Otherwise, you're not a good person. She's all pure love. So what my father said to her, Dekho, if you are serious about these two things, then don't worry. He doesn't have to find God. God will find him.
Wow. Beautiful.
Right? Such a profound thing he said. And by the way, he was doing pujas himself, every single one. Right? And that's what so the parallel to what my dad said to me is what I'm saying to you, that don't worry about God hai ki nahi hai. What is the ultimate truth? Nobody can know the ultimate truth. I mean, seriously, if somebody says this is the ultimate truth, you can believe it, but you will never know the ultimate truth. The truth with a capital T, you will never know. And so this framework is, how do we live a fulfilled life without knowing the capital T, right? So in fact, I devote a chapter on my book on this thing, that you don't need to know, right? The final, it's like Pascal's wager, that if my framework is true, then you will flourish. If it's not true, then you will lead a very good life anyway. So believe in this framework and live your life.
Very nice. Thank you so much.
Tanku, thank you very much. That was an very important question. Akhil, thanks for explaining.
Yes.
And that's a great transition for us into the next phase. Akhil has talked about how we have to live our life consciously, how we can use this framework to flourish rather than chase happiness outside ourselves. And all of us can relate as we move into this next phase of our life, that how do we want to build meaning? Akhil has suggested that it means living inwards, doing our duty, doing loving, learning, and playing. But I now want to turn to Meena. So, Akhil, are you going to go off to bed, or should I thank you for?
No. I'm going.
You're going to stay? Okay.
Yeah, I was half asleep, but I'm fully awake now.
Okay. All those IIT Delhi guys. So Meena's
all the good questions woke me up.
So Meena and I'm going to turn to another. Meena's talked about another equally important dimension of a meaningful life, which is what Tanku sort of helped us with. How do we engage with the world around us through responsible leadership, sustainability, and service? And Meena, both your books are fabulous. I read both of them, but I don't know them as well as I know Akhil. So my questions are going to be lighter, and I will leave it to you to come out with the depth. We've spoken about Vanaprastha just now, where the focus shifts from achievement to contribution, which is where all of us are. And your work in your books, both of them, reflects on how important it is to find meaning and purpose beyond our careers. You spent nearly 4 decades working in environmental education, sustainability, corporate social responsibility, responsible leadership. You're an amazing partner for Raghu, who I know well, but I'm just amazed that you and he found each other. And through your 2 books, you've explored not only how organizations can create positive social impact, but how individual managers can become more responsible leaders. I was supposed to do only one book, but I'm talking about both because they complement each other. Doing Good looks at how organizations can navigate India's CSR landscape, and the responsible manager shifts the focus to the individual and asks how each manager can bring an ESG perspective into everyday decision making. So I'm just asking, what made you write these books? Are they general interest, very niche? Please tell us how the two books complement each other and whether they were written for different audiences.
Great. Thank you very much. It's a hard act to follow because I think Pratyusha and Akhil took us to another realm. I'm very prosaic and down to earth and very, it's going to be at a different level. But to relate to what Akhil said, going off a little, Anjali, as an environmental educator, as somebody who used to train sustainability educators, we always used to say, and I think it kind of gels with what Akhil said, that sustainability is achieved when you work with the head, the heart, and the hands. In other words, you have to love, in Akhil's terminology. That is where the heart comes in. You have to be committed and passionate about the cause. The head comes in because you have to be analytical. You have to take, decisions. You can't just go on love. That is one of the myths of the development sector or impact sector, that love will solve all problems. No, love will not solve all problems. You have to bring in managerial efficiencies, analytical skills. So that's where the heart comes in. And the hand, of course, because the karma has to be done. The action has to be done. So, this is very much in line, but in a different kind of vocabulary that we always talk about. When will sustainability education really become impactful? When you employ the head, heart, and hand without a dichotomy, but in an integrated whole. So I just wanted to say that as a kind of link and a segue from the previous section. Coming to the two specific books, Doing Good is about CSR in the Indian context. Now, all of you or many of you may know that, CSR has a long tradition in India. We are talking about the Tatas, we are talking about the Bajajas, we are talking about the Sarabhais. Institutions like the Indian Institute of Science was a thought even before Carnegie Mellon was a thought, right? PF and safe working conditions for workers were Tata's agendas in the 1890s when mills in Manchester had the most horrible working conditions. So we have a very long tradition. We forget that and somehow think that this is a Western concept. So it was going on, etc., etc. But in 2014, when the Indian company law got revamped, the most discussed and most controversial, there were hundreds of changes. The whole architecture of business was changed. But the most thing that caught everybody's attention was you have to spend, a certain class of firms, large, defined in certain ways, have to spend 2% of their profits on doing corporate social responsibility, which means taking up activities in education, health, whatever. And what happened post 2014, it was a very, very onerous law in the sense at some stage in 2018 or so, if you did not fulfill your budget, there was a danger that the CEO and the CFO would go to jail. It became like a criminal offense at one stage. So the whole focus of doing good, if you may say, shifted to, oh my God, am I doing good in the right way? Am I doing good as the government will recognize? Am I keeping my accounts right? So nobody was worrying what is actually happening to this 2% profit that I'm supposed to spend, as long as they were able to show at the end of the year that I spend this 2%, in the sectors that you told me were admissible and through the means that you told me were admissible. And that was really sad for a professional like me who had seen so many years of it. Boardroom discussions, CEO concerns were all about, "Arey, compliance ho gaya. Can you give me the signed statement?" So it was so sad because the discussion just wasn't, how are you changing lives? How many lives are you changing? So impact got lost. So I thought, let me kind of write a book which says, okay, this is how you do the compliance, but, understand what CSR is about. And that was very, very soon after I just stepped down from being actively involved in CSR. So that was the first book, that is Doing Good. And the second book, which was Responsible Manager, what happened after I retired, I suppose I was always in the nonprofit world, so the heart ruled always. But probably post-retirement went into a more contemplative stage of, now what do you do with what you've done in 40 years, 35 years? So how do you share that? So teaching became an obvious thing. So I teach one course called Ethics, Sustainability and Governance. And when I went into classroom, I found that students had no concept that there is something beyond profit. So, they were taught in their finance courses, that the bottom line is what is important. They were taught in their marketing courses, you have to push your products. But how do you bring the whole together and say, whatever you do, you have to do in a certain way, which is, you have to be responsible for your actions. You have to worry about sustainability. You have to worry about all stakeholders and not just your shareholders. And what is governance? Believe me, the kind of lack of exposure of students in India to these issues is kind of, and then we think that when they become CEOs, they'll be the most enlightened. But you can't. Each one has to grow through the journey of understanding what it is and then becoming a responsible CEO. So that's what prompted me to write the second book.
Thank you very much, Meena. And thank you also for touching on the long tradition of looking at all our stakeholders, which we have had in India, going back to the Tatas. People think that Cadbury was the first guy in the UK to start it, but it was actually the Tatas much before that. And even you touched on the Tatas, Bajajes, Sarabhais, but even the Mahindras, when they started as Mohammed and Mahindra, in their first agenda had how they were looking at all stakeholders, not just profit. So sometimes we forget this because we have the stringent 2%. It's amazing how you summarize that, brought the transition, people looking at compliance. All of us in boardrooms can see that. Thank you very much. So you're basically saying that it's not about philanthropy or CSR. It's really rethinking the purpose of business as an interconnected world, which brings us back to a little bit about what Akhil and everybody was talking about. That this whole concept of sustainability is really ultimately about interconnectedness. And it's not just about being inward, but it's also about action. So that moves me to the next question. We need to move beyond a profit first mindset. We need to embrace a broader, more holistic stakeholder vision. But what are the individual choices that will enable us to do this? What are those everyday decisions? What makes a manager truly responsible? You've talked about the students and all that. So this is a bit of a big question, but we're going to the heart of the books. You have to excuse me, Meena, but I leave you to answer it in your precise way.
No, the biggest question, because, the translation of ambition, aspiration into action is a huge gap. And we see that starting right from, the 8th standard student can give you a fantastic technical lecture on climate change, but will he or she switch off the fan or light as he goes out of the room? So in education, I think the biggest gap is translating attitude and knowledge into action. And I think the same here. Only yesterday when I was in my class, my student asked me, ma'am, you're telling us all this, but I'm going to join as a very junior person. Who is even going to listen to me if I say that, no, we should worry about this or that? It is the biggest challenge. But I suppose as an educator, the hope lies that if we kind of imbibe this into students, even as they are growing into managers, that's the only hope. The change is not going to happen suddenly from the top, but it's about building a wide enough base of corporate executives and managers who think a little differently. And that's when change will come about. That is internal in maybe Akhil's sense. Externally, I suppose legislation and all that is what does its bit. So whether you like it or not, you will, do certain things. If 1,000 companies have to fill the ESG report every year, they will fill it. So, I think it's a melding of education towards the right purpose with an external force. So I don't think one will work without the other.
Thank you. Thank you very much, because it is about thinking a little differently and actually integrating our Indian tradition of the interconnected world with our actions. I love the way you have said that it is translating attitude and knowledge to action. will you switch off the light when you leave the room? And that's a question that maybe all of us can answer. But, you know, one of the things about responsible leadership is that we can't talk about it without using the term ESG. Yeah. The term is increasingly debated, and it's also controversial in some parts of the world. So ESG is on the back foot in some ways. Environmental, social, governance concerns are in some ways slipping away. Maybe not in India, not governance, but is this a concept that will become irrelevant? What do you?
Well, I think the guys in the US can answer this better. Where is President Trump going to push us on these issues? Because if there is a place where it is completely being, you know, the foundations are being knocked out, I would say it's in the US. If you say that climate change is not real, if you say that diversity doesn't matter, ESG has no feet to stand on, no legs, no feet, no nothing. But fortunately, in India, what I find is we are a little slower to catch on to trends, but it's also a little stickier. We don't let go of trends so easily. So, for instance, the business responsibility and sustainability reporting is becoming more widely prevalent. The concept entered late, but I think we will still stick with it. And again, for me, educating the young manager is important because these should not be fads. We should actually believe in it. So it is not because it's a fad that we do it, but because it is the right thing to do. So how does one, and no easy answers. I teach the course, I have no clue. I mean, yesterday also I got the devastating news that one of the students of last year, you know, had been kicked out of his job within 3 months because he had taken data from the company to use for. And I'm like, it's not just him who got kicked out of the job. I failed, right? So how do you kind of really, because these are not easy things. You can't teach ethics in 20 classes at age 23. It is something that people grow up with, right? So in an increasingly difficult world where, you know, they see corruption, they see all of this, where are we going to bring about governance if that is the norm? We've normalized it so much. So yeah, scary ones.
Thank you. That's an important one, that doing the right thing. There's no right way to do a wrong thing.
Yeah.
But what is the right thing is actually something that we need to imbue in our homes, in our schools, in our society as a culture. And it can't just be taught at 21 or 22. You know, these are deep things. The good news is that, you know, like I'm a disciple of Swami Chinmayananda, just like Chacha. And I feel that some of these classes for children do bring some of these thoughts in. Children are more thoughtful, whatever it is, the news, etc., brings this in. But so we are saying that the language around ESG may evolve. You know, we may not use the word diversity, but the underlying principle of responsible leadership, of long-term thinking,
yes,
of the world, and creating value for society remain relevant.
Yeah.
So I'm going to shift a little bit and move into you as an author.
Okay.
You've written textbooks, you've written teacher manuals, you've written policy documents, and now you've written 2 books for a much wider audience. What's your process of writing? And what's the fun of writing? If my colleagues will forgive me, if my batchmates will forgive me, as a writer, my colleague Rachna Chawla and I are both writers. So I just thought I'll ask this question.
Perfect. So Raghu dinned into me very early that writing is not about waiting for inspiration to descend from high. You just sit at the table from 9 o'clock in the morning to 1 o'clock. Don't get up. You will be so bored that you will write. So I think I took that very much to heart. So for me, writing is about discipline. Number 1. Number 2 is actually what I love is structuring. I mean, you know, how am I going to say this? How is the book going to flow? So the thing I spend a lot of time on is the cover page, getting the title and the subtitle, and getting the contents page, chapter 1, chapter 2. I spend a lot of time on that because I think it helps me in my thinking through the flow and the content and whatever it is. So that's what I really love doing. What I hate doing is referencing, because I am so confused with all these systems of APA and whatever. I hate that part of it. And I also hate indexing because it confuses me very much. So I love the structuring. I like the process of writing. What's very stressful as an author, you will recognize, is going over it for the 5th time and the 6th time and the 7th time, which you have to do. So those are some of the things. But what I also like doing is writing children's books. So this is my new children's book. It's called Alphabet Soup for the Young Environmentalist. So obviously children's books are a lot of fun to do, though you have to be even more responsible, because you can't let out a little fact or a little leaning, which is personal, but you don't want them. As an educator, you have to be so very conscious of that. And the other thing I love doing is putting in little boxes, quotes. So the responsible manager, every chapter has a couple of quotes from Gandhiji, because he had so much to say on the subject, on every aspect of it. Or putting in little information boxes, which even if people find the rest of the text boring, maybe they read that and get something. Yeah, so that's my process, just sitting at the table.
And it's so strange, Meena, because what you don't like, the editing and re-editing, is something that I love. I don't like writing the first time, but after that, editing it and polishing it and making it better is something that I enjoy. So you
I love editing other people's work. I edit each of Raghu's manuscripts 5 times. But I hate editing my own work, because then I'm not perfect. You mean I have to edit it 5 times?
And of course, you're in love with what you've written. So removing even one word is very difficult.
Exactly. Whereas I can take the red pen and slash anybody else's. And I love that.
Yeah, Raghu, I can see the viciousness with which he's saying, I take a red pen and slash across your book.
Anjali, there is one thing I'd like to tell you about Meena's book, because I had bought her book and I went through it cover to cover because I was working on a CSR project. And what I found is that book has ready reckoners. अगर आप कुछ करना चाहते हो, तो ज्ञान तो है, but also there is a checklist how to go about it in very simple words. So it's an actionable book, which I think is brilliant and is needed very much.
Chacha, so kind. So kind.
And Chacha, that is something that you will find similar even in Akhil's book, that it is an actionable book. It is something you can implement. So we can see that both Meena and Akhil, though one is looking inward and one is looking outward, have things that can help each one of us apply it, which is so important. I find it amazing that you've made these complex ideas, Meena, so accessible that somebody like Chacha, when he needs to do it, can apply it. So thank you very much for that. And now this alphabet soup is something that all of us can buy. Are there any questions? We have a few minutes left, 5 minutes before Meena's session ends. So just like we had some time with Akhil, anybody has a question? Ishan, you're raising your hand. If I give it to you, will it be seen as partial?
No, not partial at all. Meena, I'm struggling between this professional, organizational CSR and personal philanthropy stroke CSR. You give a brilliant idea about the light being switched off. Okay. I think going forward in this decade, like great work was done by Paul Polman, great work was done by Mervyn King. There were people who actually structured how to do good by organization. And by and large, investors are earlier rewarding that, now punishing that. So I think the next decade will be about individuals, and it relates to all of us, whether you're 18 years old or 80 years old, having their own personal code of doing good. And, I've not yet got literature on this. There are people struggling, and social venture partners have been part of. The organization is struggling with this. But I think like there is an organizational code for doing good. And I think that Akhil's book, that's why I really liked his thoughts, because it ultimately comes back to what is a personal code for doing good for each of us as professionals, as human beings.
Yeah, I think the focus does have to move towards that. And what I would also say is some of these, like the Harun, the philanthropy reports, are talking about a lot of individual good and giving that is happening in India. Undocumented, unreported, unstructured.
Yeah.
So, an individual philosophy, what I have seen, everybody is doing good in their circle. There are ripples being created. But sometimes it is more from the heart without the head. Somehow we think
Correct.
that doing good is to react to a problem that I see in my immediate environment. That's why philanthropy and CSR has moved a little, saying it's not that immediate reaction. How can you structure it? How can you still, I don't want to put this into the metrics of efficiency and, ROI and SROI and all of that. But is my money going to the right place? Is it being used in the right way? I think it is important that we just don't go away with this glow of, I donated 1 lakh rupees to such an NGO. No, I think it is worth asking, what did you do with that money? And before giving the money, to ask, how are you governed? Do you have proper accounts? So I think the head has to start coming in. When we start the giving journey, it's always the heart. And that's something I really think, especially management experts like, this group, have to see how to bring professionalism into individual giving also.
Thank you very much, Meena. That's a great thing. I see that Rama has raised his hand. Rama, what's your question?
Yeah, Meena, it's kind of takes off on your last point. And I'm just curious, in your experience with sustainability and ESG, what do you think are the barriers to execution and creating a more positive momentum that just causes it to go beyond today's level to a much, much higher level? Because it's clear we need it. Yeah. And it's clear also we need those funds to be deployed efficiently.
Yeah.
And in a way that goes back to what is happening in the US in a way, because there'll be some people who say that this is hocus pocus, and that's where they're just cleaning it out. So I'm just curious to know your thoughts.
Absolutely. So the de-jargonization of ESG is the most critical thing. And to make it some kind of a very technical, very niche thing, forgetting why you're doing it. I think that connection has been lost. Somehow, at least in India, the managers will talk about climate goals, they'll talk about diversity goals, without an integration in their heads as to what is the ultimate purpose for which I'm doing it. So I think de-technicalization, making it a more widespread kind of understanding of what is right, I think these have to start the process. And I always fear over legislation on some of these things. The moment something is imposed, like in India, the CSR thing was imposed, rather than letting, kind of not have such a punitive regime, but let people start believing in it. Same with ESG. If you just make it tick boxes, people are ticking the boxes without thinking why. So, there has to be a maturity in the approach to it, which helps everybody move towards that legislation. And then the legislation makes sense.
I mostly agree with you, Meena, on this. I have one point of difference. When before the CSR rule was introduced, the 2%, I had convened a workshop in Bombay. It was not me, it was Harvard Business School. We had 70, 75, 80 people, all people from the bosses of public sector, private sector, CSR guys, as well as, and there was only one chap, I forget his name, Bhaskar, I think it was, the guy who was with Rachna, you remember, from corporate, the guy from Delhi.
Bhaskar Chatterjee.
Yeah, Bhaskar Chatterjee,
IICA.
Yeah. So he was the one who came, and in front of everybody, there were 80 people in the room. There was a professor, and Bhaskar said, this 2% CSR rule is going to come. And 79 of the people just pounced on him. And he said, and they all said, we are doing it anyway. Who are you to tell us? And, we don't want all this imposition regulation. And he stood up and said something very powerful, that listen, in some cases, legislation leads. And then he says there will be a reaction. People will be scared. He said all this. People will only tick the boxes and all. But eventually there will be a change, because in this day of being very profit-oriented, people cut corners and so on. And so the legislation is required. And, I was amazed that the legislation did come out, and what he said about people ticking the boxes, exactly what you're saying. And then after some time, there's another thing which has come out, Meena, which you probably know better than me, which is the integrated reporting.
Yeah.
You know, earlier we used to only have the balance sheets. Now the ESG report is part of that.
Absolutely.
And so, you know, that's another way. I think Milind is trying to indicate to me that I need to stop this conversation. But
I just have one
Yes.
line to say that, you know, CSR law has unfortunately confabulated doing good with being good. So you are worrying about how you spend 2% of your profit without adequately worrying about how you made the profits in the first place. So this is a very, very dangerous thing. The ESG reporting tries to take care of that, and the integrated. But this dichotomy should not happen. I spent 100 crores on doing good. How did you make those 100 crores, brother?
Wonderful. That is an absolutely fabulous thing to remember, that doing good is being conflated with being good.
Yeah.
And I think that brings us back to, again, what Akhil said, that you need to be good and then you can do good. They are not separate things. Are there any other questions? Nitin,
Yeah,
Just
Anjali.
one. Go ahead.
Yes, go ahead. Go, Suresh.
Okay, so just a clarifying question, and Anjali may have already answered it. Is there a binding target for corporate CSR in India? Because I don't believe there's one in the US.
Oh, there is in India a very well laid out and clear law. If you are above a certain threshold of profit size, etc., you have to spend 2% of the average of the last 3 years' profit.
And if you overspend, you can't carry it forward.
You can now, as per the new amendments. You can, for 3 years you can carry it.
I have just two comments to make. May I?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. There was I think Ishan raised the point whether this feeling of being good, conscious of the environment at an individual level, it's time that it came there. I think to some extent it is there, because children in our schools in India are being taught about the environment, and I find that slowly the change is coming. It's the kids who are telling us that let's not fire so many firecrackers during Diwali. It creates pollution. I've seen kids, when the tap is running, they say when you're brushing your teeth, it should not be running, etc., etc. So I think the change is coming, but of course the point is very well made by Meena, that level of consciousness that at every stage what we are doing has to be with the love for the environment and the earth. And it actually is love for our own people, because if we leave a good earth, we leave a good earth for our children too. So, it all stitches up. So that's one. The other thing is that I just wanted to give you an example about being mindful about your CSR. So there's a company that I'm associated with. It's a big group, and they used to always do their 2% CSR to their own school of underprivileged children or orphans or whatever. And year after year, that 2% will go. But last year, I found a very nice change, and I must admit I had no role to play in that. They stopped for last year. They didn't give the money to their own school orphanage, but they gave the entire amount. They became main sponsors for a cancer cure foundation. Now that was amazing, and that the Cancer Cure Foundation in Hyderabad, that gentleman who heads the oncology in Apollo has been awarded, I think, the Padma Shri also. But he runs this fantastic organization where he treats underprivileged children free of cost with all the funds that he raises with that. So I just wanted to share that good thing that's happened. In some company.
They left their school high and dry, huh?
Exactly, my question.
No, they didn't leave
Another way of looking at it is that if you've been supporting somebody for a period of time, after 3, 4, 5 years, they should become independent and they should get other sources of funding. So both philosophies work, but I can see that Suresh has raised his hand. So
let me just quickly clarify. We didn't leave the school high and dry. They had enough funds. And one other group company was, in any case, funding them. So the shift was that, that's a nice, easy way. It's in-house, just keep pumping in money. So the shift was that the school didn't require any additional funds, and here was a crying need for something else. So that's what happened. Yeah.
Thanks. Thanks for explaining that, Tanku. They didn't leave it high and dry. That was a good question. So, Suresh?
Yeah, Meena, thanks a lot for very, very interesting outline. But Meena, I think Raghu and I keep talking about it very often. Despite all the ESG being very successful, why is it that most of the corporates are still not very environmental friendly when it comes to packaging and other things? And I mean, I can cite out large companies when the packagings are completely destroying the environment. Have you worked on anything like that? Thanks.
No, I haven't worked on it, but I can see it, Suresh, because they also don't take this cradle to grave approach or life cycle analysis approach. So their factory, they will do X, Y, and Z. They never think what's happening to the raw materials coming in, the vendors that are supplying them, or what goes out and what happens. So, somehow, again, this, and, that's why we talk about it's holistic. ESG has to be holistic, and you have to report on practices of vendors, and you have to report on product end life and packaging. But it's a very big shift to make. And I would also say that, I'm sorry, advertising and marketing have such a role to play, the more attractive. So these are some of the fundamental changes. The more attractive and the more fancy. So each one is trying to out-fancy the other with, 5 rolls of packaging for a packet of biscuits. I think that's where the non-holisticness of the whole thinking comes into very clear view.
Just a clarification here, Meena. There is now a regulation that every company has to use a certain amount of plastic through the recycle route.
Yeah.
And Titan in Bangalore is doing marvelous work on this. Titan, Unilever, Dabur, all of them, the plastic they use, a certain percentage, there's a regulation in it, has to come from certified recycled sources. So Suresh, it's a very big movement in India now. Recycling has become huge business, and it's a profitable business, and a lot of foreign investment is coming into this business, especially the electronic waste and PET and specific plastics. Just for your info.
I'll send you a case study which we've written called Recycle, which is, I think, a company based in Hyderabad. We'll post the link. If any of you want it, I'll send it to you. So thanks, Chachu, for highlighting that. Yes, it's there. I can see Rama has raised his hand again. Rama?
Before Rama, Vinita has
before me.
Hand.
I basically wanted to ask, how serious are companies over CSR?
Increasing numbers are becoming increasingly serious. There is no doubt about it. It's also, quite a status thing. I did this. So even when CEOs talk, they talk a lot about their CSR rather than business strategy. So it is gaining a lot of visibility and, traction in that sense.
There's a lot of visibility, Meena, because
a lot of visibility.
Rama, your turn.
Yeah, thank you. Meena, my question is a technical question, kind of.
Oops.
How can we be as gearheads not ask? I was trying to sell our system for PFAS tracking to one of the very big companies. And I found very interesting the conversations that are going on. So given the destructive potential of PFAS, what do you think is the reason why the government has not set up environmental guidelines for it? So that, going back to what Chacha said, people can then do something positive about it.
Yeah. I think for us, legislation takes its time, in every aspect. So it just even recognizing that it's a big enough problem to start legislating about is a long-winded process. And I suppose we don't really have voices which kind of advocate for such legislation at all. I mean, where we are so distracted with other things, somebody will come to it when they come to it. I think that's the story of Indian policy making.
Thank you.
I think so. The government makes policies but doesn't follow it on its own. So development here goes without bothering about the environment.
I I think, Nidhi, you raised a question. Nidhi?
Yeah, thanks, Anjali. Meena, that was a lovely talk. I really enjoyed it.
Nidhi, we cannot
Nidhi, you're
hear
very
you.
soft.
Yeah, we cannot hear you.
Oh, okay. Is this better?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
we
Yeah,
can.
hi. So I was just saying, Meena, I really enjoyed listening to you and your passion for this subject.
Thank you.
My question was, do you think that I think you focused mainly on corporations. Is this an issue that all of society needs to be educated on? I mean, are we unfairly just pointing to the corporate sector and expecting it to change? And perhaps because they have so much impact, it's correct to assume that they should change the most. But is this a societal thing? Because, you hear about the farmers burning crops and the pollution in Delhi and all those things. Are we as a society not paying enough attention and need education in general?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there can be no two ways. And I think somebody else also said that, each of us has to do our bit. But, there are two things. We have to do it as karma. I have to do the right thing. But will it all add up to make a difference is an issue. So when it comes to an impact perspective, will me plus you plus Milind plus Raghu make the difference? Or do we also need the larger entities to become cognizant of this and take action? Because both their impacts and their, ameliorative measures are larger. So whether it is corporations, whether it is the government, I would say, the previous point of legislation not coming in, they are the ones who set the trend. All of us have to do our karma, our duty of what is right. I cannot be environmentally irresponsible. But it's even more important because they have a greater impact that corporates and governments do their bit. So everybody, I think, it's dharma for the whole society.
Thanks. Thank you very much. And going back, for example, to the farmers' question, it's all interrelated. By making it illegal for the farmers to burn, there was a business opportunity. There's a friend of mine who's now to remove the stubble, and he's selling the machines to all the farmers in Punjab and making a lot of money. The stubble is now being converted into compost. So the machines come and do that. So there are,
tools, you have to have policy, you have to have financial incentives, disincentives, you have to have laws which come down, and you have to have education which helps us understand all of this. So the four levers have all to be operated.
So
just a quick follow-up question, if I may, Anjali.
Yes, go ahead, Nidhi.
Do you think that the younger generation is more inclined to thinking about these issues than our generation was? Do you think that they are rethinking the whole concept of work, life, society to a greater extent than we questioned any of it? Because, there are a lot of societies, I mean, foraging societies traditionally, who were very content with very little and lived a fairly decent life. We've built up this whole edifice of complications for ourselves in a way.
Yeah. I think all of us are more optimistic about youth today than we were 2 months ago. They seem to be picking up issues and they seem to be seeing it to a conclusion. And the analysis is that it's not for individual benefits, but for overall societal change. So yes, one thing that, for instance, Tanku said, it's the children who said no to crackers. So we already saw that kind of a movement. Internationally, we've got Greta Thunberg or whoever. And now we've seen change being brought about. So I think, yes, it's not hopeless. The future is not hopeless. I think the young are taking charge and questioning fundamentals that we took for granted. So yeah, maybe. Will it be too late is the only issue.
Thank you very much, Meena. And Akhil, I don't know whether you're still here, but thank you if you have stayed on. But Akhil, you're here. So any last questions? Otherwise, Milind is telling me that we are out of time.
No, I think the time was very well spent, Anjali, with your moderator role and with Akhil and Meena sharing with us very high level thinking via their books. I really enjoyed the fact that Akhil brought in the contemporary nature of a philosophical treasure that we have inherited in the form of the Bhagavad Gita so beautifully in his book. And Meena has taught us quite a few things about how to interact with the environment in meaningful ways. So I think all of it makes for much better way of living our lives in our 70s and thereafter, and also inspiring the next generation to do equally good or better things. So I really want to convey my heartfelt thanks to Akhil and Meena for joining us for this 6th anniversary celebration, and to Anjali for moderating the session so beautifully. Thank you all.
And what an honor and privilege it has been. Thank you, Milind. Thank you, Yanks. And Anjali, wow.
No, I couldn't have done this without my colleague and very good friend, Rachna Chawla.
Brilliant. Rachna did a great job. All the support, fabulous.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Rachna.
Thank you so much, all of you,
Thank
for
you
having
all.
me as an invitee.
Raghu, thanks for marrying Meena and introducing her to us.
It's been a pleasure being in this session and an honor. Thank you for having me over.
Of course.
Thanks a lot, everyone. Great session.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
To
See you
everybody for
everyone
taking the
in
time off.
September. Thank you for being